When I pushed open that rusted apartment door, I expected silence, maybe the stink of last night's whiskey still hanging in the air. What I didn't expect was my crew, lined up in the dark, guns leveled at my chest like I'd walked straight into my own execution. The click of safeties going off echoed louder than any greeting. And in that instant, I knew, the game had shifted, and I was the prize. The thing about betrayal? It doesn't arrive like a thunderstorm. No, it drips in slow, careful leaks until the floor beneath you rots out. I should have seen it coming weeks ago. Hell, maybe months. The sideways glances at the table. The way cash went missing from our last job. The silence whenever I walked into a room. But I ignored it, convincing myself loyalty still meant something in this business. That was my first mistake. "Close the door, Rico," Manny said. His voice was low, steady. Not a request. Not a suggestion. I did as I was told, the weight of every barrel tracking me. My own hand hovered near the Glock under my jacket, but I wasn't stupid. 8 against 1. That wasn't a fight. That was a funeral. Manny stepped forward, his gold chain catching the thin slice of light from the hallway. He'd been my right hand for 6 years, the man I trusted to watch my back when cops raided, when bullets flew. But right then, looking into his eyes, I realized trust was just another currency, and I'd been bankrupt for a while. "You've been holding out on us," he said. No anger, just cold fact. Like he'd already sentenced me, and the guns were the jury waiting to pull the trigger. I laughed. Sharp, bitter, the kind of laugh that bounces off walls and makes even liars uncomfortable. Holding out. Manny, I'm the one who built this whole damn operation. Without me, you'd still be slinging dime bags on corners nobody remembers. His jaw clenched, but he didn't flinch. Funny thing about empires, Rico. The king don't always stay king. Sometimes he gets greedy. Sometimes he forgets who put him on the throne. That line hit me harder than any bullet could have. Because the truth. They weren't wrong to think I had secrets. I did. A stash spot no one knew about. Money tucked away for the day I finally decided to vanish from the city's rotten streets. But those secrets weren't theirs to claim. I'd earned every dirty dollar, every sleepless night, every scar. The others shifted, restless. I caught Tony's eyes in the shadows. Kid was barely 21, but he had his pistol steady, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Like betraying me would earn him his stripes. My gut twisted. I'd fed that kid when he was running scams in alleys, taught him how to move quiet, how to breathe steady when pulling a trigger. Now he was aiming those lessons at me. "Let's not do this," I said, my voice lower, almost calm. "Whatever you think I'm hiding, whatever lies Manny's been feeding you, it ain't worth the blood on this floor. You kill me, you don't just take out a boss. You set fire to every bridge we ever built." Silence. Then Manny smiled. Not the brotherly smile I used to know, the one that came after a good score, after splitting bills over whiskey and laughter. No, this was a wolf smile, sharp and final. "We already burned those bridges, Rico. All that's left is ash." I felt the heat rise in my chest, a storm of rage and something sharper, clarity. If they thought they'd cornered me, they'd forgotten who taught them how to play this game. Betrayal was their first lesson. Survival. That was mine. And as my hand brushed the grip of my Glock, I made myself a promise. If this was the night my crew wanted to make me the target, then I'd remind them exactly who the hell they were aiming at. Manny's smile stayed fixed, but his eyes flicked to the hallway. He was listening for something. Back up. Cops. Or just his own conscience trying to crawl out of his throat. Either way, I kept my palms open, easy, like I'd accepted the verdict. Inside, every nerve I owned was counting windows, angles, distances. 8 guns. 1 flickering bulb. My jacket's weight, reassuring against my ribs. The floorboard 2 steps behind me that cried out like a dying violin. "Never step on that one." "You're late to your own party," I said, nodding at the setup. "What's the occasion?" "Cake. Candles. Coup d'etat." "Accounts," Manny said. "You skimmed the Valentine run. 50 bricks went in. 47 hit the table. Your cut didn't cover the difference." I almost smiled. "You been doing math in public again?" He tilted his head, and somebody behind him, Javi clicked his tongue. The room tightened. That's when I finally placed it. Not just the guns. The silence. No music from Carmela downstairs, no television through the wall, no baby crying from 3B. The building was empty. Either Manny had cleared it, or someone else had. "Let me guess," I said. "Navarro whispered in your ear. Told you kings get old, heirs get hungry." A flicker. He didn't bite, but the name landed. Good. "Navarro don't whisper," Manny said. "He offers. And he offered you my chair." I took a slow step sideways, not back. Tony's muzzle tracked me like a dog's nose. "Chair comes with bills you don't see until the ink's already dry." "Where's the ledger, Rico?" This time from behind Manny, Lupe, voice tight, knuckles white around a nickel-plated .38. "The black book. The safe keys. If you had no secrets, you wouldn't keep a map of them." "Cute," I said. "You break into my place, hold me at gunpoint, and call it bookkeeping." "Call it balance," Manny said. "One way or another." He'd rehearsed that line. Probably in the mirror, chain glinting, imagining himself taller. I breathed through my nose and let the acid roll off. "Okay. Take inventory." The hallway's motion sensor had triggered when I opened the door. I'd wedged a shaving razor blade into the hinge last week, a habit I picked up after a warrant team kicked me awake at dawn 2 years back. When the hinge slid, the blade fell, tiny clink by my boot. I pressed my heel onto it, feeling the edge bite the rubber. Good. Edge secured. "Funny thing about ledgers," I said, keeping my voice bored. "They don't matter to dead men. To live ones, though, they're insurance." Manny spread his hands a little, magnanimous. "So insure yourself. Tell us where it is." "You want the book." I shrugged. "Take a walk with me. 2 blocks. We grab a coffee, air out grievances like civilized thieves. We come back, I hand it over." Tony snorted. "He thinks we're idiots." I looked at him, really looked. Fresh tattoo still pink along his throat. The ink read loyalty, but the L had blown out, bleeding into an O. Oilty. The universe had a cute sense of humor. "Tony," I said softly, "who called you the night before Valentine? Who told you to rotate the driver at the last minute?" His jaw twitched. Manny didn't answer for him. "Interesting." "I did," Manny said finally. "So what?" "So only 3 of us knew the cops had a scanner in that corridor," I said. "Me, you, and Javi. Driver rotation saved our load. But it also rerouted us past Navarro's boys, who just happened to be buying coffee outside the bakery at 3 a.m. Funny coincidence." Javi bristled. "You calling me a rat?" "I'm calling you predictable. You can smell a bonus like a bloodhound." "Enough," Manny said. "We ain't here for a debate club. We want the book." "And I want a new crew," I said. "But we don't always get what we want." I let my eyes wander like I was giving up, like I was considering betrayal's embrace. In truth, I was waiting for the sound I'd been expecting since I clocked the empty building. The faint hum of tires rolling slow outside, a door thump, a radio whisper trying to be a ghost. Manny was listening for it, too. He'd cleared the building, all right, but not for privacy. For containment. "You set me up for a pinch?" I asked. "How poetic. Shoot me and call it resisting. Bring Navarro my head and the ledger, 2 for 1 special." "No one's dying if you cooperate," Manny said, but the way his thumb petted the slide told on him. I shifted my weight, heel grinding the razor blade, and my eyes went to the fuse box above the kitchenette. My landlord never fixed the panel door. It hung loose, dangling by a single screw like a tired eyelid. Above it, the bulb flickered again, the filament complaining. "Truth is," I said, and I lifted my hands higher so the jacket rose and all eyes came up with it, "I did skim. 3 bricks. Not 50. Not 7. 3. Stashed. Insurance against nights exactly like this." Javi spat. "He admits it and thinks it buys him mercy." "It buys me leverage," I said. "Because those 3 ain't product anymore." Manny's eyes narrowed. "What are they then?" "Tickets. To men who don't answer Navarro's calls but always return mine. You touch me, those tickets cash in. They don't knock, Manuel. They breach. He wanted to call me on it. I could see the muscle in his cheek, counting to 10 in Spanish. Then we all heard it, the staircase groaning under heavy boots, the metallic rattle of something long and ugly being dragged, a whispered on my go. Not Navarro. Not my friends. Not anyone's. The city's favorite song. Police breathing. Everyone inhaled at once. Guns dipped toward the door. Manny didn't move. His eyes locked on mine with a new calculation. You called them. I smiled without teeth. You did. His plan suddenly looked cheap and flimsy in the light of it. If he was about to hand me over, he didn't factor one thing. They wouldn't stop with me. 8 guns in a room with a ledger rumor? They'd scoop every soul breathing, then let a judge decide who got to see sunlight next spring. Manny knew it, too. For the first time, doubt wrinkled his forehead. I took my shot. Option 1, you shoot me, SWAT stacks the door, and everyone leaves in bags or bracelets. Option 2, you lower your guns, we take a stroll to the cellar where the book ain't, but something else is. Something that makes this conversation cheaper and shorter. What something? Tony asked, head darting between me and the door. A ladder, I said, and Manny laughed despite himself. That laugh cracked the tension just enough. I moved. Not forward. Up. My hand whipped toward the fuse box, fingers hooked, and I ripped that dangling door like a shield, metal squealing. At the same time, my heel rolled the razor blade to my toe and I flicked it hard, a silver blink under the bulb. It caught Tony's wrist, not deep, just surprise, enough to dip his muzzle and pop a reflex shot into the ceiling. Plaster rained. The bulb flared, screamed, and died. Darkness swallowed us. Someone cursed in Spanish. Someone else dove behind the couch. I threw the fuse box cover at the window and the glass exploded outward, shattering into the alley's night. That was for the cops. Give them a ghost to chase. Hold your fire, Manny shouted, but panic had a louder voice. 2 more shots cracked wild, smashing my kitchen tiles. The hallway outside erupted in thunder, boots, the slam of a battering ram kissing wood, the chant no one mistakes for anything but doom. Police! Search warrant! My hand found the counter's edge. I slid left, dropped low, and my fingers found the tiny lip of the crawlspace hatch I'd cut behind the stove last summer. Manny always teased me for being paranoid. Paranoid people have basements where other men have graves. Rico, he yelled over the chaos. You run, you die. Every man dies, I said, and pried up the hatch with a grunt. The door exploded inward before the hatch cleared, wood splintering like a scream. A flashbang clanged off the wall and spun to a stop under the couch where Javi was breathing too loud. He saw it a tick late. I saw his eyes go wide, his body curl. The world went white. Then sound turned into hot needles. I dropped into the dark and pulled the hatch closed above me with a soft kiss of wood. The house upstairs filled with thunder and orders and the sweet, stupid music of bad decisions catching up. In the crawlspace, dust hugged my face like old friends. I crawled in blackness along the joists, counting knots with my palms, heart steadying by force. Above me, Manny shouted my name like a prayer that wouldn't be answered. Somewhere, Tony was sobbing and swearing he couldn't see. Boots spread through my life. Radios crackled. And in that tiny tunnel of air and rot, my mouth found a smile. Because 10 feet ahead, behind a loose cinder block, the ledger wasn't waiting. Something better was. I reached for the block, fingers hooked, and froze. A sliver of light glowed ahead where no light should be. A phone screen, dim, face down, buzzing once, twice, like a heart. Someone else was in my crawlspace. Close enough to smell the oil on their pistol. Close enough to whisper my name without Manny hearing. Rico, the whisper came, female, steady, a voice I hadn't heard since I burned the last bridge I thought I'd ever need. We need to talk before your house falls down. Her voice slid through the dark like a scalpel. Clean. Precise. Cutting old stitches I'd pretended were scars. I couldn't see her face, just that dim rectangle of a phone, the pulse of its light licking the crawlspace ribs. Move slow, she said. You twitch wrong and the whole street knows where you are. I stayed still. The house above us roared, a choir of boots, furniture scraping, someone begging a god they only called when the lights were red and blue. I let my lungs sip the air. "Last time you spoke to me," I whispered, "you threw a glass at my head." "Missed on purpose," she said. "We don't have time for cute." I shifted on my elbow, letting dust cake my tongue. "Manny clear the building?" "Mostly," she said. "He missed me. He always did." I watched them set up for 20 minutes. Navarro's watcher in the alley tipped cops for the show, not the catch. You know what that means. That Navarro wants headlines, not bodies. I clicked my teeth. He wants it to look like a Rico problem. "Exactly," she said. The light kissed her wrist when she moved. A scar I remembered, thin and white, from the night we outran 2 unmarked sedans and a dog that didn't know any commands but eat. She flipped the phone, killed the glow. It was just breath and wood again. "What's in my hole?" I asked. "You sitting on it?" "On the hinge," she said. "You really got cheap." "A hinge, Rico." "Cheap keeps you alive longer than fancy," I said, and reached. My fingers found the cinder block sweet spot, and I twisted, slow, felt the mortared grit surrender, felt the block tilt in my hand like a secret I'd kept too long. Behind it, the smell of oil and old paper and something like river stones. "Don't turn the light on," she said. "They're throwing thermal upstairs. You pop a glow down here, they call it a grave." I slid my hand inside and closed it around the package that wasn't a ledger. Cold, wrapped tight in oiled canvas. When I pulled it, the weight dragged my arm down. It hummed against my palm like a sleeping animal. I listened to the hum. Familiar. Marked into me like an old tattoo. "You brought the puck," she said. I heard the breath hitch in her throat, even in a whisper. "You're insane." "I'm sentimental," I said. "Same thing." She shifted again, the gun oil in her clothes a perfume I tasted. "You dig that out while the house is packed with cops?" "I dug it out because the house is packed with cops," I said. "You know the rules. If I'm going down, I don't go alone." Still dramatic, she said, but I heard the approval wedged in. "Listen to me. Manny's not your problem anymore. The guns pointed at me say otherwise. They were pointed at whoever Navarro told him to point at." Her voice went even softer, like she was tucking a knife into velvet. "Navarro keeps files. You know this. Photos, audio, texts. He never throws away a string. The ledger don't scare him. The puck does." I stroked the canvas with my thumb. Inside the wrap, something spun when it met the touch, a kiss of electronics that would play nice if I told it to or scream if I didn't. "You still got the codes?" She laughed once, no joy in it. "You stole them from me. I borrowed. You left me with a bag full of IOUs and a bullet in my wall." "Missed on purpose," I said. Above us a voice barked, "Clear." Another answered, "Negative on primary," and something like a refrigerator toppled. Time was a wet rope. You thought you had a grip until it slipped. "What's your angle, Lena?" I asked. Saying her name hurt my mouth. Like I wasn't allowed it anymore. She didn't answer right away. I could hear her measure. Everyone in our world weighed words before selling them. "Navarro sent a boy to ask me if I knew where your book was." A pause. "He didn't send his best. He sent someone he could burn if you smelled it. You burned him first." "I let the fire climb the line back to his door," she said. "You want to hear the fun part? Surprise me. He didn't flinch when I said your crew flipped. He flinched when I said I thought you still had the puck." A board above us creaked. "Boots. Clothes." I tucked the wrap thing to my chest and slid forward a foot, felt her hand on my sleeve, steady, exactly where it used to be on nights when the floor was lava and every tile was a bad choice. "What's he planning?" I asked. "You know Navarro," she said. "He doesn't plan. He layers. He gets Manny to pull your teeth. He gets cops to pull your tongue. He keeps his hands clean while you drown in everyone's spit." "Poetry," I whispered. "You get soft in exile. Exile taught me to shoot straighter." She shifted, put something small and cool in my palm, metal, flat, a blade shaped like a whisper. "You still collect razors under hinges?" Cute habit. Keep this. In case your dramatic streak gets you cornered again. Working on it now, I said, because the crawlspace ahead narrowed into a slot like a throat, and beyond it, the street. I'd cut a grate there years ago, behind a busted dryer vent. It opened into the space beneath the stoop. If I could get my shoulders through, if the cops were busy arguing with Manny's version of the truth, I could be in the alley in 60 seconds. If. Always that if. You alone? I asked. Or you brought ghosts? 2 blocks out, car idling, she said. Stolen plate, cold engine. I'm not 20 anymore, Rico. I plan for the part where running hurts. You were never 20, I said. You were a storm in a coat. Keep moving, she said. We wormed forward. The dust got thicker, greedy in my nose. I tasted plaster, hot and electric. Above us, someone called my name again. Manny, voice frayed. There was fear in it now, a fear that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with the men who were suddenly asking to see warrants that weren't as tidy as they should have been. Left, Lena hissed. Don't hit the cross beam. They put a sensor there last month. How you know? I read leases for fun. I grinned in the dark. And then I bumped the beam she warned me about anyway, because the beam wasn't where it used to be. Something chirped, soft but eager. Lena swore under her breath. The crawlspace ahead stuttered with light, a fat rectangle of yellow knifing through the slats. A cop had peeled up the board in the pantry. A flashlight licked the insulation. The beam tried to find us, like a curious cat pawing at a mouse under a couch. Stop, Lena breathed. We froze. The light wandered, bored. It moved on. Okay, she said, exhaling. Slow, slow. Something thumped to our right. Not a boot. Not a tool. A body. Someone had had the same idea we did, and they weren't as good at it. A low groan, then a whisper that dragged nails down my back. Rico. A hand flopped into the light. Thick fingers. A ring I knew, a saint's face worn down to a moon. Javi. He was bleeding from the scalp, a line of black crawling across his cheek. He blinked at the light like it was noon. They flash, he mumbled. His gun was gone. His pride with it. Lena's hand tightened on my sleeve. Leave him. Can't, I said automatically, because history is a chain you wear tightest when it hurts. Javi had saved me once by doing nothing more heroic than not shooting when he was scared. That counted in our math. You can, she said, if you want to breathe tomorrow. I stared at his hand. Saints have ugly faces when you wear them down. Javi tried to push himself up and failed. Rico, he said again, and there was no swagger left. Just a man. Above us, the radio crackled. Unit 4, alley is quiet. And another voice, Stack 2, check substructure. Decision time. The puck was a halo on my chest. The blade was a ghost in my palm. Lena was a heartbeat to my left, a memory and a warning. The grate ahead was freedom with a question mark attached. I hooked my fingers under Javi's arm. Rico, Lena said, low, cold. If he gets us caught, I walk. And I take the puck with me. That's not how this works. It's how it works tonight. Javi groaned, the sound too loud in the small dark. The flashlight above swung back, eager this time. Someone shouted, movement! The beam sliced our world in half. Choose, Lena said. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know which way to aim my crooked idea of mercy. The beam carved the crawlspace like a knife, dust glittering in it like cheap constellations. Javi's fingers twitched in that light, ring flashing, a drowned saint begging for air. Above, the cop's voice sharpened. Movement under pantry. I've got heat. Lena's breath touched my ear. Walk, Rico. Count, I whispered. For what? How loud I am when I don't listen. I slid the puck up under my chin so it hugged the hollow of my throat, then shoved my free hand under Javi's shoulder. A body in a crawlspace is 50 pounds heavier than on a sidewalk. The dark multiplies weight. He groaned, a ragged thing. The flashlight burned brighter. Don't be a martyr, Lena hissed. I'm not, I said. I'm being selfish. It didn't make sense, but it was true. The world forgets the men who leave you, It remembers the ones you dragged 3 feet further than you should have. Javi had once not killed me because his hands were shaking. Tonight I owed him exactly one quiet favor. The beam swung. "I see them," a cop barked, boards creaked, knees hit the kitchen tile. 2 bodies under. One's moving. "Show me your hands," another voice boomed, muffled by insulation, close enough to taste. I let go of Javi long enough to fish the little razor Lena had given me and sliced the skin bag around the dryer vent. A cough of cold air rushed in, blooming white in the beam like a ghost. Air on dust reads like heat on their toys if it hits right. Not perfect. A stutter. Then I did something stupid. I pulled my phone, thumbed it blind, and set the flashlight to blink on the far end of the crawl under an overturned paint tray. I slid the phone with 2 fingers, slow, until it kissed the tray's lip, then tapped the screen with the blade tip. The blink went wild, strobing shadows beyond us. "There!" the cop shouted, and the beam jerked toward the fake dance of light. Lena cursed softly. "That buys you 3 seconds. 2 now." I hooked Javi again, pulled. He moved like wet laundry. The ring on his finger scraped wood, ugly, loud. The radio above popped, thermal's dirty. "I'm losing picture." "Because you're breathing on it," someone said. An argument blossomed. "Beautiful." "Rico," Javi slurred, finally finding my sleeve. There was old loyalty in his grip and newer fear. "I can go." "You can shut up," I said, and jammed him into the shallow where the beam couldn't see our bellies, only our boot soles if we got lazy. I shoved fiberglass over his legs. It bit my wrists, made me want to sneeze. I swallowed the itch like a secret. "Leave him," Lena said again, but not with the same edge. She passed me something by touch, a felt pad that smelled like cinnamon. "Bite this if you sneeze. You give them one human sound, we're soup." I bit. It was a furniture foot. She was the only thief I knew who packed home improvement into a go-bag. We slid forward, slow enough to make snails impatient. The great square showed itself ahead as a darker dark. More promising than any light. Above, Manny's voice broke through again. "You got a warrant for that substructure? You tear up my guy's place without." "Shut up and sit down," a cop said. Another voice. "Where's Navarro?" I smiled, couldn't help it. Even the law knew who wrote the score. The grate kissed my fingertips. I found the 4 old screws I'd loosened a dozen times by habit. 2 were barely pretending they had threads. I worked them with my nails, turning, counting. 1, 2. The 3rd stuck, stubborn as a drunk. My fingers slipped. The screw squealed. Lena's hand pressed over mine. "Let go," she breathed. She pulled a coin from nowhere, set the edge in the slot, and twisted with a surgeon's patience. The screw surrendered with a sigh, for dropped into my hand like heavy rain. "Ready," she murmured. "Wait," I said, because I'm bad at easy escapes. I flattened my palm and slid something cold into the dirt by Javi's shoulder, a stubby metal tube with a pull ring and a pin. Not the puck. A smoke. I wasn't buying him salvation. I was buying him confusion on layaway. I yanked the grate. It fell outward onto the tiny void under the stoop with a complaint I'd have apologized for in a different life. Snow breath came in, thin and blessed. Alley night. Oil. Wet garbage. Freedom's cheaper cousin. We slid out into the stoop's belly, then belly crawled to the alley's throat. The sky above was bruised, light bleeding from the mouth of the street. Lena went first, rolling to a knee behind the dumpster I never let anyone else use. I followed, hauling the puck tight, tasting metal. We stayed low, small, less than newsworthy. 2 doors up, a squad car idled, windows fogged with breath. The cops watching the alley were bored or overworked or both. Their eyes were on the broken window upstairs, not the stoop's guts. One of them rubbed his neck and said something about coffee. The other agreed that coffee was a religion. "On my mark," Lena mouthed, not said. She raised 3 fingers. 2, 1. We slid. Asphalt felt like old teeth under my palms. A cat in a window hissed at us like we were late on rent. We kissed the shadow of a fire escape, then the deeper shadow under the heaved flank of a pickup that hadn't moved in a winter. The puck throbbed once against my chest like it had a heart and wasn't impressed with mine. Halfway down the block, the mouth of the alley opened like an invitation no one with sense accepts. Beyond it, the street shrugged traffic past like it didn't know a war was happening. Lena's car was exactly where she promised. Second spot from the hydrant, neutral-colored, nobody's type. Quiet. Humble. Like her when she didn't want to be seen. "Wait," she said, hand hard on my arm. Up the block, a shape leaned on a lamppost, head down, hood up. The kind of still that's practiced. I squinted, felt the hair on my neck stand. "Navarro?" I asked. "Scout," she said. "Or Manny's extra insurance." "You told me you came alone." I did. He didn't. The hooded shape drew a cigarette ember in the dark like a tiny sunrise. The alley behind us coughed with orders. Time thinned. Decisions multiplied like knives. "Split," Lena said. "I run the decoy. You take the car. 10-minute loop. Meet on Mercer by the water. If I'm not there, you're not either." "No," I said, automatic. "You drive. I'm the big target." "You're the only one who can make that puck sing," she said. "I'm better at dying pretty." I looked at the ember. It moved, slow, like its owner wasn't in a hurry to be a ghost. "He recognizes your walk." "Then don't let him see mine," she said, and she stood up, just like that, uncoiling into the light, coat smoothing down her sides as if she was stepping into a restaurant, not an ambush. "Lena," I said, but she was already moving, head high, hands empty in that way that reads, "Regular civilian, don't worry," from a block away. The hood's face lifted. Petite woman, harmless, he thought. He didn't see the little angle at her left hip where the gun rode low, or the almost smile she wore when trouble got close enough to kiss. I ghosted the other way, smaller, shadow on brick, counting steps. The car's door handle was cold enough to bite my palm. I popped it, slid in, kept my head below the window. Keys in the tray. She hadn't lied about everything. I twisted. The engine came to in a whisper. Down the block, Lena slowed. The hood stepped off the lamppost, letting the cigarette burn to his fingers to look like he meant to. His other hand was in his pocket. I could almost hear the bad idea forming. I breathed in, turned the wheel. The car rolled like a secret. Left, then left again, using parked vans as walls. I had one eye on the street and one on the rear view, where Lena's silhouette moved like a spell I didn't trust but needed. Then the mirror showed me something else. Manny coming out of my building in bracelets, lips moving fast, eyes searching the street like scavengers. He saw the car. He didn't see me. He saw the color, the dent in the bumper, the air freshener hanging from the mirror, a dumb cardboard tree. He smiled a hungry smile. He looked down. In his cuffed hands was my phone. My fake light had been a decoy, but they found the real thing on my counter where I dropped it weeks ago and forgot. He raised it. He pressed. Lena's car chirped the tiniest lock acknowledgement noise it ever made, the one only someone who knew the make and model would hear. The hood with the cigarette turned his head toward the chirp like a dog. I sank lower, cursed under my breath. The puck hummed, a little higher now, like it, too, was nervous. Across the street, Lena reached into her pocket for nothing at all and pulled out that nothing like it was a phone she needed to glance at before passing a man she didn't want to talk to. The hood bought it for exactly 1 second. Then he didn't. His hand came out of his pocket with a shape that turned the night colder. I jammed the car in drive to ram him or run him or something stupid, and my heel hit something taped under the dash, a strip of duct and a small, square object with a blinking red eye. Not the puck. Not mine. I froze. The red eye blinked like a patient metronome. 12 inches of clean wire led under the console, where a box the size of a sandwich slept in black tape. No. Careful. A bomb is a promise with manners. Lena's air freshener, the dumb cardboard tree, swayed on the mirror. It wasn't a tree. It was a copy of a saint's face, smiling the way saints do when they know a joke you don't. "Don't," Lena said, not to me. To the man in the hood, whose gun was not yet pointed, whose eyes were still making me into a math problem. And my car, her car, our coffin hummed at my knee and blinked its patient little eye, waiting for someone's decision to be final. I didn't breathe. The red eye kept blinking like it had all the time in the world. The wire under the console looked new, clean, smug. Somewhere behind me, Manny's laugh bounced off brick, ugly, triumphant. The hood with the cigarette made his choice. His hand came up, gun half drawn, the night swallowing its shape until it was only intention. "Hey!" a cop barked up the block, finally noticing the geometry of a bad decision. The hood froze a fraction too slow. Lena tilted her head like she was considering a menu and stepped into him, all small bones and speed. Her hand kissed his wrist, her hip took his balance, and the gun changed owners with the same quiet grace she used when she lifted wallets in church. He made a sound like pride breaking. She didn't shoot him. She didn't have to. She let the gun clatter and shoved him into the light where the uniforms could claim him. They swarmed. A dozen orders tripped over each other, the kind that end with a face on concrete, everyone pretending gravity is justice. Manny saw it, put it together, Lena alive, me not obvious, and pivoted his play. He turned his cuffs toward the nearest badge and showed his eyes wide with civic concern. "Bomb!" he yelled, chin flicking at my car like a man pointing at a fire while holding a can of gas. "He's got a bomb!" For heads snapped toward me. Red-blue bled into my windows. The blinking under my knee might as well have been a siren. I could picture the report already. Anonymous tip leads to explosive device in suspect's vehicle. Navarro would get his headline and his ghost. "Rico," Lena said without moving her mouth. I felt the word rather than heard it. She looked at me once, a blade's width of a glance. Then she shouted louder for the benefit of the theater, "Hands where I can see them." "Okay. Options. Move and maybe die. Sit and definitely die later. Or cheat." I slid my palm under my jacket and pressed the puck to the console, skin to skin through canvas. It woke like a cat. 3 haptic taps walked across my thumb, the old language we wrote the year we learned to be allergic to radios. "Murmur," it said. I tapped back twice. The puck answered with a low pulse I felt in my teeth more than my ears, a soft hungry hum that made the air near the console feel thick. The blinking I hesitated. Good. Whatever box Manny's friend had tucked under my dash was listening for a note in the air. The puck sang off-key. "Hands!" a cop yelled again, closer now, boots slapping, muzzle flash nowhere but implied. I lifted my left hand into view, open, empty. My right stayed low, pressing the puck like it was a rosary. The red eye blinked slower. Then slower still, stubborn, undecided. Sweat ran down my wrist and tried to make everything stupid. A burst of shouting erupted behind them. Javi Smoke had finally remembered its job. Somewhere inside my building, gray poured up out of a vent like exhausted weather. The stack at the door panicked in a disciplined way. "We've got smoke. Back out. Where's the origin?" The alley cops split their attention in halves that didn't add up to a whole. "Now," Lena mouthed. I killed the engine and let momentum carry the car into a shallow roll, steering with 2 fingers so the tires whispered rather than spoke. The puck kept humming. The red eye blinked again, lazy now, like it wanted to nap. I thumbed the window down an inch, enough to feed the night inside, then hooked my nails under the duct-taped brick of manners. For a second I saw myself from above, idiot thief cradling a stranger's promise, praying to the god of wires he never claimed. I didn't pull wires. I didn't cut. I didn't twist. I lifted. Carefully. The tape peeled away from the dash with the kind of squeal that could ruin a man. It didn't. The puck's hum thickened, like it approved of gentle hands. The red eye, bored now, blinked once more and went dead. I didn't trust dead. I turned the package, found its tiniest edges, and set it softly on the street outside the window like a sleeping child you don't want to wake. Then I breathed for the first time since I sat down. "Step out of the vehicle," a voice bellowed, convinced I owed it obedience. I did the opposite. I slid across to the passenger side, shoulder curled, and poured myself out the open door into the crack between my car and a delivery van. A bullet didn't greet me. A shout did. "Hands! Hands!" I gave them hands, palms high as a sermon, while my feet kept moving, heel toe, small and unimportant, using steel and shadow like old friends. One of the uniforms started toward me, then his radio betrayed him. "Officer needs assistance inside. Possible civilian down. smoke conditions deteriorating. He chose the fire over the thief. I don't blame him. Fire bites faster. Lena was already moving, walking like she belonged to the block, not to me. She cut away from the swarm, melted into a couple arguing by the bodega, then separated like foam, thin, nothing at all. I ghosted the other way, keeping Brick on my right like a rule. We didn't look at each other. We didn't need to. If you're still looking at someone you're running with, you're going to trip over what they miss. I hit the corner. A bus grumbled to a stop as if bored with its own schedule, doors yawning. The driver glanced at the theater down the block and did that thing city men do when trouble looks like overtime. He stared into the middle distance and decided he couldn't see. I stepped on, touched nothing, sat in the back where the smell of hot plastic hide sins. A moment later Lena climbed in the front and didn't pay, because some rules are for quieter nights. We didn't look. We held still. The bus coughed, took a breath, and rolled. Out the window, I saw Manny on the curb, wrists bright with steel, face working. He tried to find me in 100 panes of glass and found only himself. The bomb on the asphalt blinked once in confusion, then did nothing, which is a kind of mercy. A cop with more courage than sense knelt to look at it. I wanted to yell don't, but the bus took the corner, and the city took the rest. We rode in the kind of silence that isn't empty, it's heavy. The puck slept against my ribs again, as if the song had tired it. My hands shook in a way I'd deny in any room with witnesses. Lena stared out at the blur of laundromats and neon and people pretending none of it touched them. You almost died stupid, she said to the window. I almost died poetic, I said. Same thing, she said, but there was no heat on it. After a minute, you saved Javi. I tasted fiberglass when she said his name. He saved me once by freezing. It counts. Didn't say it didn't, she said, and the words lived in the bus between the squeak of seats and the sighs of strangers. We got off 5 stops too early for anybody who was mapping our habits and cut 3 blocks through a market that always smelled like cilantro and wet newsprint. Mercer was too hot now. Every plan we had was a candle in the wind. We drifted toward the river instead, where water does what it wants and the bridges never stop humming. You still got the locker on Calhoun? She asked. Maybe, I said. Depends who Navarro's been feeding. Navarro feeds everybody, she said. Some just don't admit what they're eating. We cut down an alley of murals that used to be warnings and were now tourist bait, then ducked into a basement storage rental where the elevator never came and the cameras were for decoration. My key turned. The light didn't work because I've never liked lights. Inside, my life from 3 years ago waited, a duffel with clothes a size ago, a roll of cash wrapped in a grocery bag, a bottle of cheap whiskey I suddenly respected, a photo of a beach I never visited, and a safe only 2 idiots would call a safe. Lena shut the door and put her back to it like she could hold the world out with her spine. Open it, she said, meaning the not safe. I spun the dial, feeling the clicks like old teeth, and lifted the lid. Paper. Not the ledger. Photos. Thumb drives in a soap tin. A gun that had more history than luck. And under it all, an envelope that used to be white and now looked like the city had breathed on it too long. My name on it. Not in Lena's hand. In a neat, careful print that made my throat feel tight. I didn't touch it right away. The puck in my jacket gave a soft, polite tremor that didn't belong to anything I asked it to do. I pulled it out. Its canvas felt warmer. It never got warm. Talk to me, Lena said, eyes on the puck like it was a snake and a saint at once. It pulsed again, 3 slow beats, the pattern we'd heard once from the other side of the ocean, in a room with no windows. Calling. Not us calling someone. Someone calling us. Not a phone. A twin. I thought of Navarro not flinching at the ledger, but flinching at the puck. I thought of Manny listening for a sound he didn't understand. I thought about the hood under the lamppost and the bomb under my dash, and the way headlines eat truth with a fork and knife. Someone else lit theirs, I said. Close. How close? Lena asked. I turned, let the puck tell me with the tiny language of signal strength and respect. It hummed like a heart 2 rooms away. It hummed like a secret across a table. Building, I said. Our building. Lena laughed, soft, disbelieving. Navarro. Maybe, I said. Or someone Navarro thinks he owns. Then open your fan mail before it burns, she said, nodding at the envelope. I tore the paper with fingers I didn't trust and slid out a single photo and a scrap of tape. The photo was analog, which meant whoever wanted to be taken seriously wasn't leaving metadata for kids to find. It showed me at a table 2 weeks ago with Manny and a cop whose face I knew from a hallway and a bad hour. The cop's hand was on a folder. Manny's mouth was mid-lie. My eyes were on the door like I always expected a worse door to open. On the tape, a voice crackled, clear enough to identify, dirty enough to be plausible deniability. Manny's. We deliver him with the book, he said. You lose the warrant. Navarro keeps the river smooth. Lena took the photo and the tape and didn't say I told you so. She didn't have to. She was looking at something else anyway, the shadow under the locker door, where light shouldn't leak but did, a thin bright line that got brighter for 3 counts, then dark again. The puck matched it, pulsing a heartbeat behind. Rico, she said. I held the puck and the old gun and the new photo and the stupid grocery bag cache, and for a moment all of it weighed exactly the same. The puck trembled, polite, insistent. Tell me we're alone, I said. Lena shook her head, mouth a hard, beautiful line. We've got company with good taste in toys. The shadow swelled, blocking the crack. Someone stood there, breathing through wood. The puck purred like a cat about to choose a lap. The lock on the door clicked, soft, careful. Whoever it was had a key. On 3. Lena whispered. On 2, I said, and raised my gun as the door began to open, and a voice I didn't expect said my name like a prayer and a curse in one breath. I didn't lower the gun. The door eased open on a hinge that needed oil, and the breath on the other side hit first, cigarettes and winter and something chemical. Then the voice again, shaped like a memory I'd tried to starve. Rico, he said, and when his face slid into the storage unit's low light, the past walked in on 2 legs wearing a fresh scar. Santo. The man I'd buried 3 summers ago in my head because there hadn't been enough pieces to bury in the ground. The man who taught me how to count cameras by the hum they made. The man who bled on my shirt and laughed about it. Lena's gun was already on him, sight perfect. Her mouth said nothing, but her eyes said everything ugly. Close it, I told him. He stepped in and nudged the door with his heel, soft, so the world didn't notice. He wore a city worker's jacket over clothes 2 sizes smaller, like he'd borrowed a life and didn't intend to return it. In his left hand, lo, the shape that made the puck in my palm purr like it wanted to be bad again. You shouldn't be alive, I said. It wasn't eloquent, but it did the job. Sentence I've gotten used to, he said, and lifted his right hand empty, palm out. The left stayed low, respectful of the object that could sing us all into or out of hell. You point 2 guns at me, and I still feel at home. What do you want? Lena asked, voice flat as a blade on a table. To not die in Navarro's pocket, he said. To watch him drown in it. Friend of the year, I said. The puck pulsed once in my hand like a nod to its twin. Close. Hungry. He looked at the safe that isn't and the old cash and the photo of a beach and smiled in a way that hurt my teeth. You didn't change. Same bad whiskey. Same box. You did, Lena said. You learned to knock. Santo's eyes flicked to her and away. No lingering, no softness. Heard you missed once, he said. On purpose. Twice, she said, and the air cracked a little. I kept my gun up and raised the puck just enough to make its twin glow, the dim kind you only see if you know where to look. Navarro has 1, I said. Navarro has nothing, Santo said. Navarro holds leash ends. The dog is federal. The other dog is foreign. Both love the song your toy sings. Both hate how many keys it opens that aren't theirs. Plain English, I said. The puck, he said, kills ears and wakes doors. It's a lullaby and a hammer. The river vault. It listens for that note. Navarro bought rumor. I bought the real thing. You bought a funeral and returned it, Lena said. From who? Santo's mouth flattened. There was a boat. There was a burn. I swam wrong and breathed a month in a room with no windows. The man with the window keys said my life cost less than your names on paper. I paid interest. Now I'm done paying. Outside the door, a cart rattled. Someone coughed the way building managers do, entitled to things. The shadow under the door thinned, then disappeared. We were a slice of world no one wanted to see. "Manny?" I asked. "Talking loud to cover how scared he is," Santo said. "He sold you twice in one night, first to Navarro, then to the badge in the photo. That cop sold him back to Navarro before the ink dried. Now Manny prays in a language he forgot. Where does that leave us?" Lena said. "Richer," he said, and for the first time the old spark ran under his words. "If we live." He crouched, slow so we didn't ventilate him, and set his puck on the concrete between us like a priest setting down a relic. The hum between the two of them braided, finding harmonics that made the fillings in my teeth itch. He slid a folded map from his jacket. Paper. Blue lines. Grease marks where fingers had lingered. He tapped the river like it owed him money. "Bridge piling 4, he said. "Under the graffiti you think is art and the city calls blight. Steel box poured into concrete before any of us were born. The note wakes it. It opens like a mouth when it hears the right word." "And Navarro?" Lena asked. "Has boys at piling 2, he said. "He heard half the story on purpose and the wrong half by accident. He thinks the mouth is there. He thinks the word is louder. He'll be busy disappointing himself." "Who else knows?" I asked. "The badge in your picture," he said. "And the man behind him. The one who doesn't wear a badge but collects them." The puck in my hand gave 3 gentle taps. Santos answered with 2. Old handshake, old code, ears nearby. He nodded once toward the door. "Manager's coming back," he said. With curiosity. "Let him," Lena said. "I'm tired of small rooms." "No," Santo said, and for a blink the old command lived in his voice. "We go down, not out." "There is no down," I said. "There is if you stop calling it a floor," he said, and kicked his heel against the unit's back corner. The plywood thunked wrong. He peeled up a square of old carpet, dragged back a board, and a square of dark-breathed cold metal. The old maintenance run. I'd walked by it too many times, called it a stain. He called it a road. "You had a key and a map and a hole," Lena said. "You came how many minutes ago?" "Long enough to hear you choose to be stupid," he said, looking at me with a ghost smile. "Long enough to hear you save the wrong man for the right reason." "You planning to steal from us or with us?" I asked. "With until with becomes from," he said. Honest answer. Better than polite lies. I should have shot him for that. Instead, I holstered the old gun and picked up the new sin. "We move," I said. "Bridge piling 4. But we don't go as one line." "Agreed," he said. Lena didn't put her gun away. She didn't need to. The barrel followed his shadow like it wanted to bite. "You take point," she said. "If the floor eats you, I call it justice." Santo grinned without showing teeth, swung his legs into the hole, and vanished down a ladder that smelled like wet iron and old animals. I gave Lena a look I didn't know how to name. She gave me one back that was a sentence long and not fit for print. Then we followed him into the building's veins. The maintenance run was a lung full of rust. Pipes sang to themselves. Somewhere, water argued with its own path. We moved fast, silent by habit, the 2 pucks wrapped and quiet now, like snakes asleep in baskets. Santo moved like a man who knew where the rot was and where the rivets held. He knew this route. He'd used it for another sin. "Your window man," I breathed. "He federal or fairy tale?" "Both," Santo said. "He wears suits some days, soft shoes others. He collects favors, breaks them into pieces, sells the pieces back." "What does he want from us?" "For the vault to stay closed or open on his schedule," Santo said. "Tonight we pick the schedule." The run let us out behind the building next door, into a yard that pretended to be private. Night had thickened while we were underground. The river's breath reached us even here, cold and patient. Far off, sirens played tag with themselves. Close by, a couple fought in whispers about something small that felt big. We cut east in shadows that didn't argue, keeping to fences and trucks and the blind eyes of cameras that thought their job was done after midnight. The city watched us and looked away in the same movement. Plan, Lena said. It wasn't a request. 2 steps, Santo said. 1. Wake the mouth. 2. Close it before the wrong hands figure out what word we taught it. What's in the mouth? I said. Besides teeth. He looked at me like the old days were a reel he could rewind with a blink. What we packed 10 years ago when we were too smart to be this stupid, he said. Names. Numbers. Routes. The kind of list that makes men retire early or not at all. Plus 6 keys to doors we were sure we'd never need. Funny thing about never. You left that in concrete, Lena said. You planned to come back when? When the river asked, Santo said. Tonight she's loud. We hit the embankment as a train slid overhead, iron singing to iron. We moved under it, into the shadow of Piling 4, where graffiti layered over itself until the wall was more story than stone. A crown, a name, a date, a plea. The water slapped a rhythm that was older than us. Santo went to one knee and pressed his puck to the concrete like he was apologizing. He looked at me, then Lena. 2 voices, he said. She only trusts harmony. I set mine beside his. Lena backed off 6 feet, gun up, eyes busy. I tapped a rhythm once used to talk to doors in a country that doesn't like talking. Santo answered with the counterpoint. The hum woke like a thing that remembered us. Concrete vibrated under my palm, faint, then less faint. From the wall came a sound I hate on any night, a click, like a throat clearing before it says your name. It opened. Not big. Not dramatic. Just enough for a hand to slide in and take the wrong thing if the hand was sure. Santo reached. Lena hissed. He laughed once, rueful. Fine, he said, and stepped aside. I slid my hand into the mouth of the city. Inside, cool metal. A plate. A handle set sideways like a joke. I turned. Felt a second click, a whisper of pressure equalizing, and then a tray slid forward on rails smooth as sin. On it, a canvas satchel gone dark with river breath. A smaller steel box with a keyed latch. And a sealed envelope stamped with a name I did not expect to see printed on anything that wasn't a badge. The name was mine. Another fan letter, Lena said, voice too even. Santo went very still. Not at the bag. Not at the steel. At the envelope. Window man, he said softly. He wants a seat at our table. I stared at the letters. They stared back. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I palmed the steel box. Heavy. Mean. I handed it to Lena. She weighed it like judgment and slipped it into her coat like it had always been there. I lifted the satchel. It sagged with paper and something denser. The smell of old ink climbed my nose. My hands remembered the weight before my head did. Behind us, a car door shut without haste. Another. Soft. Expensive. Footsteps that didn't hurry or fear. Santo's head turned first, because he always heard money before gunmetal. I followed. 3 men in coats walked down the embankment as if they owned gravity. The one in the middle didn't wear a badge, but he collected them. Evening, he said like he meant it. The river's cold made his words crisp. Mr. Rico. Ms. Lena. Mr. Santo. The family reunion warms my heart. Santo's hand crawled toward his puck. The man smiled, small. Don't, he said. Let's not make the river clap at the wrong rhythm. Lena's muzzle moved a hair. The 2 suits flanking him lifted their hands a hair more, showing nothing and everything. The man's eyes were kind, which is worse than cruel when you know the species. He nodded at the satchel. That belongs to me, he said, like weather belongs to anyone. Funny, I said. The concrete disagreed. He looked delighted. You always were my favorite, he said. You have a talent for believing the city loves you back. You have a talent for showing up with other people's names in your mouth, Lena said. He spread his hands. I'm a public servant, he said, and Santo laughed then, a short, tired bark. Public servant, Santo said. That what they call wolves in your neighborhood? The man ignored the insult as if it were a breeze. He glanced at the envelope still sitting on the tray's lip, clean and white and wrong. Open your mail, Rico, he said. It would be rude to neglect a gift. He smiled like a photograph does. And we have so very little time to be polite. I didn't touch the envelope. The man's smile said he'd already opened it in 100 versions of tonight. Go on, he coaxed, like a teacher who knows the answer and wants to watch the kid fail anyway. I set the satchel on the rail of concrete between water and us, weight balanced, like a dare. Then I took the envelope, not with fingertips, with the part of my palm that doesn't leave prints, and cracked it open. 3 things slid out. A photo, recent, me at the bus window 10 minutes ago, a typed letter that smelled like toner and perfume I couldn't quite place, and a scrap of something metallic, thin as a prayer strip, embossed with 6 numbers that weren't a number at all until you knew what you were singing to. The letter was brief, which meant the trap was deep. Rico, your legend was never the point. The river is. Deliver my property, Satchel Plus device in steel, and walk out of tonight unsighted, uncharged, and unmentioned. Decline, and you are the bomb under the dash, the voice on the tape, the headline Navarro needs. We both know the jury likes a simple song. Tick-tock. H. He liked single letters. It lets a man pretend he's an institution instead of a man. I looked up. His eyes said he loved his job. What's the H stand for? I asked. Hobbyist. Hypocrite. Helpful, he said. Lena's mouth didn't move. He has a judge on a leash. 2, Santo murmured. The men flanking him adjusted their coats, which is the polite way suits reach for weapons they swear they aren't carrying. The river hissed like it was bored. Let's not do theater, H said. In 60 seconds Navarro's boys at Piling 2 realize they've been serenading a sewer grate. When they pivot to you, I prefer the optics of you cooperating. I rolled the metallic strip in my fingers. It felt like a bridge toll, old and cold. Santo's puck gave a tiny, involuntary hum. H heard it and his eyebrows lifted, pleased. 2 keys, he said, glancing between my hand and the canvas bundles. How intimate. You sent Manny, I said, not a question. I permitted him, H said. It's healthy for local economies to feel included. And the bomb. He tilted his head. Such an ugly word. A deterrent. You put it under my friend's dash, Lena said. Not a deterrent. A memory. Semantics, he said, then sighed, bored with being clever. Rico. We can trade paper until dawn. You don't have dawn. I looked at the photo in my hand, me behind glass, small, like I could be filed. Navarro's crew were shadows moving along the far pilings now, agitated shadows. Sirens wove somewhere above the bridges, part of the city's nightly lullaby. The satchel between us breathed the ghosts of names we'd buried and the routes we'd burned. The steel box in Lena's coat pressed against the night like a second heart. Why me? I asked, honest for once. Why not take this off Manny when he tried to bring you my head with a bow? H's smile softened, like a father forgiving a child for the wrong sin. Because I'm not here for your head, he said. I'm here for the story you keep trying to write about yourself. You and I both know what happens when men like Navarro hold a thing like that, he nodded at the satchel. He uses it once. Then he bleeds everyone for the encore. You're a thief with rules, Rico. Vile, but useful. You'll use it right once and then bury it. So give it to me and I'll bury it for you properly. Santo snorted. By properly, he means profitably. H didn't deny it. Make a choice, he said. He thought he had me cornered because the geometry was beautiful. River at my back, suits at my front, wolves on the periphery. He hadn't factored the note that had woken the mouth, the way the concrete had shivered like it recognized something older than his paper. He hadn't factored that the mouth could close. I palmed the metallic strip and the photo, tucked the letter under the satchel strap like a receipt, and reached with my other hand, the one I use when I don't want to spook a door. Santo's puck was still pressed to the concrete, humming like memory. Mine answered, low as a throat clearing. Harmony isn't volume, it's intention. Don't, H warned gently. I touched the edge of the tray we'd pulled, just enough for the mouth to feel my skin again. I didn't sing a new song. I stopped singing at all. The hum died. The river seemed closer. The tray slid an inch inward, not enough to be obvious, enough to make the satchel tip, then stop, poised. H's cheek twitched. He understood levers. He just didn't like when he wasn't the one holding them. Rico, Lena said. One word, 14 meanings. Choose. Don't lie to yourself about what you're choosing. Navarro's boys shouted finally, late to the party. One of them fired a warning into the water because men like to warn water. The shot slapped, useless and loud. H's suits flinched by habit, then corrected back to expensive stillness. You bury it for me, I told H. You steal it again later. You give it back to me. I bury it so far down the river grows old trying to remember the sound. And the steel? He asked, eyes on Lena's coat as if staring could move it. That key opens more than doors. It's not a key, Lena said. It's a promise. And you don't get promises. He nodded, accepting the loss like it would be repaid with interest. Then the satchel. I put my hand on it. Not gently. The canvas sighed under my palm like the past relieved to be touched. Santo shifted, a weight change only people like us notice. The suits tensed. H's smile cooled. Last offer, H said. Walk away clean. I make Manny the headline. I make Navarro the cautionary tale. You go on being a bedtime story thieves tell each other when they want to feel brave. I don't want to be brave, I said. I want to live long enough to be bored. Then don't be romantic, he said. Romance is for people with time, I said, and moved my hand a hair. The tray slid another inch. The satchel teetered, that dumb little balance before gravity makes up your mind for you. Stop, H said. The word wasn't a suggestion anymore. I stopped. Because I'm not a martyr and I'm not a poet, and there is a third choice when a man thinks he's given you two. I picked up the satchel and, in the same breath, lifted the photo, pressed it to H's chest like a corsage he didn't want, then let the metallic strip fall into his breast pocket like a tip. You don't get this, I said, meaning more than canvas. You get a copy. One song. One time. In the place I say, with the witness I bring. You step an inch wrong, the river eats. You know I can make that happen. You just felt it. You're bargaining, he said, amused again because men like him never stop enjoying the mirror. I'm setting rules, I said. Behind him, silhouettes grew teeth. Navarro himself didn't come, cowards cure at distance, but his impatience did. The wrong half, at piling 2, had bloomed into a whole mess and it was walking toward us. H angled his body so I was still center frame in his mind. He weighed it. He weighed me. He weighed Lena and the steel and Santo and the 2 pucks and the mouth that had listened to us and might again. Tomorrow, he said. Noon. The ferry terminal. He smiled at his own surprise. It's public. It's loud. It's mine. I shook my head. Dawn. The old dry dock. Empty except for men who know how to shut up. You bring one. I bring one. No glass. No wire. We sing once and bury it. Then we all pretend we're strangers at stoplights again. He clicked his tongue like I was a child refusing broccoli. Then he nodded. Dawn, he said, tasting the word like he hadn't seen it in years. A voice from the dark. Navarro's boys were close enough to mistake. H didn't look back. He lifted 2 fingers, lazy, and the suits moved with a choreography that said they'd rehearsed leaving more than they'd rehearsed killing. He took a half step, then paused, glanced at the envelope I'd left like a placemat. He picked up the letter, glanced at the blank back, and smiled as if we'd shared a joke I hadn't heard yet. Tick-tock, he said again, a whisper of perfume ghosting the words. Then he and his coats climbed the slope like they were walking uphill through history, unbothered by the wolves sprinting to be late. Santo didn't wait for the second act. We're ghosts, he said, and slid his puck into his jacket, already moving toward the shadows under the bridge, away from headlights and headlines. Lena's hand was on my arm before I could chase whichever stupidity was nearest. You've just married a clock, she said. Better than a coffin, I said, but my voice didn't love the math. We went the way the river told us, low, then lower. The satchel dragged at my shoulder like a child who'd stopped believing in me. The steel box tapped against Lena's ribs like it wanted to remind her of every door it could whisper open. Santo's breath stayed even because his body learned long ago to hide fear from itself. We didn't get 20 yards before the night put a hand on our chests. Not H. Not Navarro. The kind of halt that comes from the life you had before you had lives like this. A shadow peeled off the abutment and became a man. Same jacket as the one in the photo in the storage unit. Same jaw. Same eyes that never quite loved the truth. The badge was gone from his belt, but it lived in his posture. "Rico," the cop said, and the way he said my name made the satchel heavier. He wasn't pointing a gun. He wasn't alone, either. Shapes held their breath behind him, good at it. "You just made my night very complicated." "Get in line," I said. He showed me both palms, the ritual we all cling to. "I'm not here for Navarro," he said. "Not anymore." "Then you're late," Santos said. "Shut up, dead man," the cop said without looking at him, which told me he wasn't surprised Santo could talk. Lena didn't shift her aim. "Your friend H will be upset you missed his entrance," she said. "He doesn't invite me to the opera," the cop said. He nodded at my shoulder. "What's in the bag?" "History." "Then give it to someone who knows what to do with it," he said. "I did," I said, and showed him the smile I save for funerals. Something moved on the bridge. Sirens, feet, the rumble of a city wanting to be tired and being denied. Clock faces turned somewhere we couldn't see. Dawn had a shape, and it was walking toward us whether we wanted it or not. The cop looked at me and the bag and the steel under Lena's coat and the old ghost wearing Santo's face. He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath all week. "Tomorrow," he said quietly, the word making my ribs cold. "The dry dock. Bring a priest, Rico." "For last rites?" I asked. "For the wedding," he said. "What wedding?" "You and your clock," he said, and stepped back into the dark like he lived there, which he did. We kept moving. We became 3 shadows again, then 2 when Santo decided his route split from ours. He squeezed my shoulder, brief and hard, like an old promise renewed without words. "You get romantic, I shoot the clock," he said, and was gone into pipes and brick. Lena and I found the maintenance run's mouth again by feel. The city's breath came up through it, damp and old. Behind us, the river closed its metal lips without a sound. The mouth remembered us. It would remember in the morning, too. If we made it to morning. "You trust him?" she asked, meaning H, meaning the cop, meaning me. "No," I said. "I trust the river to stay cold." She laughed, tired and beautiful. "That's almost wisdom," she said. We went down into the veins. Above us, the night wrote a version of the story for people who like their villains simple. Below, my phone, which I hadn't had, which should have been ash in a pocket somewhere, buzzed once in a way only one person ever programmed it to. It shouldn't have been possible. It was. I took it out. Cracked screen. No signal bars because signal is a rumor down here. A single notification glowed, no app name, just a line of text. Tick. The second line popped as I watched, a beat later. "Tuck. You hear that?" Lena asked, and didn't mean the phone. "Yeah," I said, and didn't mean the river. We walked toward dawn. The satchel breathed. The steel was warm. The pucks slept and dreamed in our coats. And somewhere above our heads, a man with a single letter for a name smiled into a mirror, while a different man unloaded a gun he wasn't supposed to have, and Navarro practiced a scowl for a camera. I opened a door and found guns waiting. I closed a mouth and found a clock instead. Tomorrow, I either bury both or get buried with them. Either way, when my hands pressed that concrete again, the city hummed back like it knew my name. Which meant the city would also know when to stop saying it.